Hi everybody, welcome to NorCal Slot Car Scene. The first half of 2024 has been an absolutely great year for new slot cars. We've seen cars like the C8 Corvette from NSR, along with the Datsun 510s from Revel Slot, and the upcoming Datsun 510s from Slotted. So the car of the year for 2024 is going to be a really tough decision. And not to be outdone, ScaleAuto has announced a few new cars that are just hitting the market now. The three new cars that they've announced previously and now are hitting the hobby shops as we speak are the Cadillac Hypercar, the IMSA car and the World Endurance Challenge car, the Peugeot, which races in the World Endurance Challenge, and the BMW M8 GTLM, which is a car that's no longer raced because the GTLM class was discarded a couple years ago in favor of the GT3 cars, but it is a brand new slot car. So let's take a look at these three slot cars in a little bit more depth. First is the Cadillac. They call it a hypercar. It's also an IMSA GTP car. It races in both the World Endurance Challenge as well as IMSA. It did very well a couple of weeks ago at Le Mans and was in contention for the win right up to the end. The slot car is very similar to the previously produced Porsche 963 in the hypercar line, as it uses the RT4 motor pod, a 22.5 long can motor with a 13:31 gear ratio. So these new hypercars coming out, the Cadillac is going to be very similar to the Porsche 963, I think, in terms of performance. The next car is the Peugeot, and the Peugeot races strictly in the World Endurance Challenge at Le Mans, as well as the other World Endurance Challenge races, including coming to Texas for the Lone Star Le Mans later this year. An interesting thing about the Peugeot is this is the version from the first year that the car ran, and it did not use a rear wing. So I think a lot of you know if the rear wing falls off your cars, sometimes they perform better just because of the lack of weight. So this may be a real sleeper in the hypercar category in terms of slot car performance. As far as the chassis goes, it's similar to the 963 and the Cadillac. It uses the RT4 motor pod, that same 22.5 motor, as well as the 13:31 gear ratio. So like I said, I really think this is going to be a sleeper. The last car that they introduced was the BMW M8. And like I said, the M8 is a GT Le Mans car that raced up until a couple of years ago at Le Mans, as well as the IMSA series. And this car was raced in the 2020 Daytona 24 Hours by Ray Hall Letterman, as well as in the World Endurance Challenge. Won a few races in both series, and now is coming to the slot car world. The slot car is very similar to the other ScaleAuto GT cars in that it uses the RT3 motor pod, which is a little bit wider angle than the one in the hypercars, as well as a little bit less powerful motor with an 11:27 gear ratio. But having driven a car with this motor, and this motor is still very, very fast. As many of you know, I'm a BMW fan, so I can't wait to get my hands on this car and build it up and see how it races. As with all ScaleAuto cars, there are optional parts available, including chassis of different stiffnesses, rubber wings, with the exception of the Peugeot, which doesn't have a wing, as well as Lexan lightweight interiors. So there's a variety of optional parts for these cars. One interesting option for the BMW is the fact that they've created a 3D chassis that uses the RT4 motor pod found in the hypercars. So if you want to try that narrower angle hypercar RT4 motor pod, ScaleAuto does make a chassis for that motor pod that fits the BMW M8. All three of these cars are hitting the market right now, so check with your local hobby shop for availability. Like I said, can't wait. I'm probably going to try the Peugeot without the rear wing in the hypercar class, as well as the BMW M8 in the GT class. The one thing I wish ScaleAuto would do is get the liveried cars out as soon as possible. All three of these cars are available now in the white kits, and they've shown the liveried cars on their website so you can see what they look like, and they should be available shortly. Thanks everybody for watching. This is Jim Rose with NorCal Slot Car Scene.